My brother-in-law stole my $850,000 inheritance, and I made him pay twice what he stole. I never imagined the person who would betray me the most wouldn't be a stranger or even a business partner, but my own brother-in-law, the man who married my sister, the man we all trusted. And yet he still found a way to steal $850,000 from me, money left to me by my mother, and almost get away with it. Almost. Because what he didn't know is that the one decision he made out of pure greed would eventually destroy him, and I would be the one holding the match. Before I tell you how everything fell apart and how I made him pay twice what he stole, I need to explain how we got here. I grew up in a small, quiet town. My parents worked their whole lives running a modest family business, a tiny furniture workshop behind our house. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, but my parents were the kind of people who saved every dollar, repaired everything instead of buying new, and believed in hard work and patience. When my mother passed away unexpectedly 2 years ago, she left behind something none of us were prepared for. A large inheritance she had quietly built over decades. Investments, savings, and a piece of land she bought cheap in the 90s that skyrocketed in value. My portion, $850,000. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, stunned. My hands were shaking. I had never touched that kind of money in my life. My older sister, Emily, was there with me. Her husband, the thief, though I didn't know it yet, was also there. His name is Daniel. I'll admit this now, I never liked him. He always had this fake confidence, like he was performing a version of himself for the world. But Emily loved him, so I tolerated him. The lawyer explained that the inheritance would be processed in stages. Paperwork, verification, transferring the funds. It would take about 6 weeks. During that time, everything needed to be signed and confirmed, including a temporary financial authorization form that allowed the lawyer to contact us jointly in case new documents were required. That form, the one I barely even glanced at, would later become Daniel's weapon. After the meeting, Emily cried softly in the hallway, remembering our mom. I cried too. Daniel didn't cry. He kept asking the lawyer questions about timelines, access, and liabilities. At the time, I assumed he was just being practical. Now I know better. He was scanning the system for holes. Over the next few weeks, something felt off. Daniel started appearing in my life much more often, dropping by my house just to check in, offering to help organize the paperwork, even buying me coffee, something he never did before. It wasn't kindness, it was strategy. One afternoon, he showed up with a bright smile plastered on his face. "Hey man, Emily's cooking dinner tonight. Come over, we'll talk about the inheritance stuff, just to make sure everything is going smoothly." I didn't think twice about it. He was family. Why would I suspect anything? But that night, during dinner, he kept steering the conversation towards the same topic. My plans for the money, where I'd invest it, what I'd do with it, whether I was sure I didn't want help managing it. I brushed it off. I told him I just wanted to let the dust settle first and figure things out later. He nodded, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of calculation. A week later, the lawyer called me. His tone was unusual. Just confirming, he asked, "You approved the early transfer authorization for Daniel to handle the processing on your behalf, correct?" I froze. My blood turned to ice. "What authorization?" Silence. Then the lawyer sighed heavily. "That's what I was afraid of." And in that moment, before he even explained it, I already knew. Daniel had done something big, something irreversible. But I had no idea just how far he'd gone, and that he wasn't working alone. And that's the part no one in my family was prepared for.
I called the lawyer back so fast, I barely remember punching in the numbers. My pulse was hammering in my ears, and I kept pacing the hallway like the floor was burning. I never authorized Daniel to make any transaction for me, I said the moment he picked up. I didn't sign anything. I didn't ask him to manage anything. None of that is true. For a moment, the only thing I heard was faint static on the line. Then the lawyer exhaled sharply. "Well, then we have a very serious situation," he said. "Daniel submitted an early transfer authorization form with your signature 3 weeks ago. The bank has already validated it and is preparing to release the funds." I stopped walking. It felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. 3 weeks ago? I was out of state. I was sleeping on my aunt's couch, sorting through boxes of family documents, trying to finalize funeral arrangements. I wasn't even near a printer, let alone signing legal documents. "Send me the document," I said. When the email arrived, I opened it immediately. The room was quiet, but suddenly everything felt too loud. The refrigerator humming, the ticking clock, my own breathing. The handwriting on the form looked almost mine. Almost. Someone had clearly practiced. The letters were shaped right, the spacing was close, but it lacked the pressure and rhythm of my writing. And the signature. They got surprisingly close. But I always draw a tiny underline under my name, a habit I never skip. Here, no underline. Then something else hit me. The contact email on the form wasn't mine. It was a random address I'd never seen before, created just days earlier. The lawyer continued talking while I stared at the document. "We usually confirm by phone before submitting anything, but the form included a note saying you were currently dealing with family matters and preferred email-only contact, and the email responded promptly." My stomach twisted. Daniel knew exactly where I was. He knew I was overwhelmed. He knew I wasn't checking anything closely. He had planned this. But the lawyer wasn't finished. "The instructions on the form request the bank to transfer the full amount, $850,000, directly into an account registered under Daniel's business entity. Are you familiar with this entity?" I felt cold all over. "Yes," I said. "It's his consulting company." "A consulting company," the lawyer repeated. "It's listed as a private investment trust." That part was new and extremely concerning. The lawyer lowered his voice. "If this wasn't you, then Daniel is attempting to illegally divert your inheritance." My hands were shaking as I scrolled down the document again. At the bottom was a typed note. "Client acknowledges early distribution may incur tax liabilities and accepts responsibility." I stared at that line for a full minute. I would never write that. Never agree to that. Never sign anything related to taxes without reading every word. I asked the lawyer, "Can we stop the transfer?" He hesitated, which was not the word I wanted to hear. "The request is already in the processing stage. Since the signature passed verification, the bank considers the authorization valid, but..." But what? "If we intervene immediately, we may be able to freeze everything before funds leave the estate account. You'll need to file a formal dispute today, and we'll need to prove the signature is forged." Finally, something I could act on. "I'll come to your office right now," I said. But before I could leave, the lawyer said something that made me pause at the door. "Just so you're aware, Daniel called me this morning asking when the transfer would be finalized. He sounded impatient." Impatient. That single word told me everything. Daniel wasn't confused. He wasn't misunderstanding paperwork. He wasn't accidentally handling things early. He was counting down, waiting, expecting the money. My inheritance. And he wanted it fast enough that he was checking in with the lawyer. But then the lawyer added one more line. He insisted you told him to handle everything. He said you were overwhelmed and didn't want to be bothered. I closed my eyes. That was exactly the lie he would use. At that moment, a realization hit me like a slap. If Daniel forged the documents, what else had he been doing behind my back? And how long had he been planning this? The lawyer's final words were, "Hurry and bring any documents with your real signature. We'll need them." I grabbed my keys. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. One sentence. "Hey, just checking. Did the lawyer call you today?" I stared at the screen. He wasn't checking. He was testing something. And suddenly, the truth clicked in my mind. Daniel already knew the lawyer had called. He just wanted to know if I knew. And that meant he was scared. Which meant I didn't answer Daniel's message. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew anything I said, any slip, any hint that I'd caught on, could make him panic. And if he panicked, he might move faster, cover tracks, or worse, withdraw the money before we could freeze the account. I drove straight to the lawyer's office, gripping the steering wheel so tight my hands started to ache. The moment I walked in, the lawyer already had a file open on his desk. A huge stack of papers sat beside him. Bank copies, authorization forms, verification notes. He looked up and motioned for me to sit. "We need to move quickly," he said. "I've already contacted the bank to flag the transaction, but we must file the fraud dispute immediately. I'll walk you through everything." I nodded, though my mind was still spinning. We reviewed everything line by line. Every forged detail, every discrepancy, every reason the signature didn't match my real one. When the lawyer saw my real signature on older documents, he shook his head. "There's no question," he said. "This is forgery, a clean case, but we need to get ahead of Daniel." I swallowed. Meaning what? Meaning he may try to justify the transfer, tell the bank he's acting on your verbal instructions. He's already prepared a narrative, and banks, they don't like confusion. That made my chest tighten. Daniel wasn't sloppy. He wasn't stupid. He knew exactly how to construct a convincing lie, and he knew exactly which emotional strings to pull. We printed 3 official dispute forms. I signed them, my real signature, underline and all, and the lawyer scanned everything into the system. Then came the part I had been avoiding. "You'll likely need to confront him," he said. "Not to accuse him, but to see if he slips. Sometimes the smallest inconsistency becomes evidence." I didn't want to confront him. Not yet. Not when he still had access to the money. But the lawyer wasn't wrong. Daniel had already tested me once with that message. If I stayed silent too long, he would know something was off. I left the office and sat in my car, staring at my phone. The message from him was still there. "Hey, did the lawyer call you today?" I typed back. "Yeah, he did. Just asked me to confirm something. Not sure what's going on." True enough to sound real, vague enough not to give anything away. Daniel replied within seconds. Yeah, he's been confused lately. I handled some paperwork for you because I figured you were overwhelmed. Didn't want to stress you out." My jaw clenched. There it was, the lie wrapped in a sweet, caring tone. He continued, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out. I'll call him." I froze. No, he couldn't call the lawyer. If he did, he might hear the truth, that I had already filed a fraud claim. I had to stop him. So I sent a message that would buy me time. Actually, he said he'd call me back later. Just leave it for now. A pause. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Then,
Sure, just let me know if he says anything weird. Weird. That was an interesting choice of word. Because in Daniel's world, the lawyer saying anything weird meant telling me something Daniel didn't want me to know. I felt sick, but I wasn't done. If Daniel was bold enough to forge authorization documents, he was bold enough to lie about anything. I needed proof of his involvement, something undeniable, so I decided to test him. I called him. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful and relaxed, like nothing was happening. "Hey, I was just about to call you. How are you holding up?" "Fine," I said calmly. "Just trying to sort things out. The lawyer said there were some issues with the forms." He paused. Just a breath, barely noticeable, but I caught it. "What issues?" he asked. Feigning confusion, I said, "Oh, something about early distribution, taxes, or responsibility language. I don't know. He said he received something that didn't match my usual documents." Silence. Then Daniel spoke carefully. "Yeah, I handled some paperwork because you were dealing with everything. I thought you needed help." That phrase again. Help. Always framed as if he was doing me a favor. "What paperwork exactly?" I asked. "You know, the inheritance stuff," he said lightly. "Just to get things moving. Didn't want you to drown in documents." I pretended to hesitate. Then I asked the question that would corner him. "Did you sign anything for me?" Dead silence. 5 seconds. 6. Then Daniel laughed nervously. "What? Of course not. I just organize things, type stuff. You know, how messy the estate office can be." He was lying, and badly. But then he made a mistake. "Besides," he added casually, "the lawyer said he got your confirmation email, so everything should be fine." My blood ran cold. Confirmation email. He slipped. He admitted the fake email existed and he knew about it. But I pretended I hadn't caught that. Instead, I asked one last question. "What email?" Daniel inhaled sharply, the kind of inhale someone makes when they realize they said something they shouldn't have. "Oh, you know, whatever email you used. I don't remember." He was unraveling. And then, desperate to control the conversation, he suddenly changed tone. "Look, I know you're stressed. Trust me, I'm handling it. Let me deal with the bank. You don't need to worry about anything." I ended the call shortly after, pretending to be tired. But inside, everything was clear. Daniel wasn't improvising. He had a plan, a big one, and he had rehearsed every lie except for the one he just slipped on. The fake confirmation email. That was proof, real proof. I forwarded the suspicion to the lawyer immediately. He replied within minutes. "That email address is registered to Daniel's company. We can use this." I sat back in my car seat, exhaling slowly. But I didn't have time to relax, because while I was gathering evidence, Daniel was preparing his next move. That night, at 10:41 p.m., I received another message from him. "Just a heads up, I might need you to sign something tomorrow. Nothing big, just routine." Routine. My heart sunk. Daniel wasn't slowing down. He was accelerating. And whatever he wanted me to sign was going to be bad.
The next morning, I woke up early, heart pounding. I knew Daniel would be moving quickly. Every second I hesitated, he gained an advantage. I called my lawyer first thing. "Let's make sure everything is airtight before he even touches the papers," I said. The lawyer agreed. "We'll prepare a decoy document. Make it look real enough that Daniel thinks he's in control. Then we track every action he takes." I spent hours drafting an almost perfect fake signature with tiny details only I and my lawyer could recognize. By afternoon, everything was set. Then I sent a casual message to Daniel. "Hey, just send over the papers. Let me know once you've reviewed." I waited. My stomach twisted as I watched the "seen" notification appear. Daniel responded almost immediately. "Got them. Thanks for sending. I'll look at it tonight." Aha! That's exactly what I wanted. He wouldn't suspect a trap. He would think he was maneuvering while every move he made would be recorded. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange mixture of anxiety and satisfaction. This was the first step. By evening, the lawyer and I had compiled a full timeline of Daniel's actions. Every login, every click, every tiny note he left in the system. He had no idea we were watching. The next day, I arranged a casual meeting under the pretense of discussing minor details. Daniel showed up, grinning as usual. "I've got everything under control," he said. I nodded, pretending to be weary. "Good. Just make sure the documents match everything we discussed." He smirked, confident. That smirk, it was the same one he wore when he tried to trick me with the fake confirmation email. I stayed calm, waiting. And then I made the move that would start unraveling everything. I subtly hinted at the fake document's existence. Funny, I noticed one paper didn't quite match the original signatures. Must be a mix-up with the lawyer's copies. Daniel's grin faltered. Just for a second, a micro-expression of doubt flashed across his face. Bingo! I let it pass, casually, as if I didn't notice. He left that meeting thinking he was still in control, but inside, he had taken the first step into my trap. By carefully manipulating what he believed, I had now turned the tables. Daniel thought he was steering the ship, but I was charting every course. And this was only the beginning. The following morning, I received a text from Daniel. "Just reviewed the documents. Everything seems fine. Thanks for sending." I smiled. Everything seemed fine on the surface. I knew better. I had already planted subtle clues in the documents that only someone greedy and overconfident would notice. I called my lawyer. "We're ready for the next phase," I said. By noon, I arranged a casual lunch with Daniel, just the two of us. He arrived with his usual swagger, completely unaware that he was walking straight into the storm. "Glad we could do this," he said, shaking my hand. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Yes, it's good to review things face to face." During lunch, I spoke casually, never giving away that I knew his every move. Then I dropped the bait. I noticed some discrepancies in the account transfers. Must have been an oversight by the bank, or maybe someone else." He paused, almost imperceptibly. I could see the gears turning behind his confident eyes. He tried to cover it up. "Oh, probably just a minor error, nothing to worry about." I smiled faintly. Right, but funny how it lines up perfectly with the timing of those early withdrawals. I watched as his confident demeanor flickered for a moment. Just a moment, enough to give me insight into his mindset. By the end of lunch, I had gained exactly what I wanted. Confirmation that Daniel was greedy, impulsive, and increasingly paranoid. Back at my office, my lawyer and I documented every reaction, every micro-expression, every hesitation. This was data, pure gold. Daniel had no idea that he was providing me with everything I needed to prepare for the final move. That evening, I went home, feeling a strange thrill. The trap was working exactly as I had imagined. Daniel thought he was playing the game, but he was actually dancing to my rhythm. And soon, very soon, he would realize that every step he had taken had led him into a corner from which there was no escape.
The next morning, Daniel sent me a text. "Can we schedule a call? Something came up regarding the account?" I smiled. The trap had worked perfectly. He didn't realize that every move he made was feeding me more evidence. I replied casually, "Sure, let's do it around 2 p.m. Bring all your notes." At 2 p.m., Daniel joined the call, confident and slightly tense. I began by discussing minor details. Nothing threatening. Then, step by step, I presented the facts. Every withdrawal, every unauthorized transfer, every discrepancy. I let him react. I let him squirm. "I don't understand. These numbers don't make sense," he stammered. I nodded. They make sense if someone was trying to take advantage of the system. Someone trusted. He went silent. His face betrayed panic. I had watched him make these mistakes, and now it was time to turn them into consequences. "Daniel, because of these actions, we have no choice but to pursue full restitution," I said calmly. He tried to argue, tried to deflect blame, but every word he spoke was a confession in disguise. I let him dig the hole deeper himself. By the end of the call, it was clear. Daniel had fallen into the trap completely. He had confirmed his own guilt, and there was no escape. I hung up, feeling a sense of satisfaction. The plan had worked flawlessly. A week later, the legal documents were filed. The amount Daniel owed had doubled due to penalties and interest, $1.7 million. Every penny accounted for. Daniel's empire began to crumble. Clients questioned his reliability. Investors pulled out. He had underestimated the consequences of his greed. I didn't gloat. I had simply set the stage and let karma do its work. In the end, justice wasn't just about money. It was about proving that betrayal comes at a price, and that patience, strategy, and careful planning always triumph over impulsive greed. And Daniel? He would never forget this lesson.